You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to Power Talk. I'm Micah Ponce, the Communications and Media Specialist here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative, joined as always by my co-host, Miss Libby Rogue, the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Good morning, Micah. And as always, we have a great show for our listeners. So
we got a full house here in the studio, the way we like it.
Yeah, good information to come.
Yes. Well, our special guests today are Mr. Justin McCloskey, the Senior Advancement Officer for Trident United Way. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here.
And Mr. DJ Hampton, the President and CEO of Trident United Way. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, not a problem. We enjoy having folks from the community come in and to share what's going on and the missions that they have to help our members and the Lowcountry in general. We love it. That's what we live for here on Power Talk.
And we have a special gift to commemorate your
We
appearance.
do. We are going to present you with your ceremonial Power Talk mugs.
Fantastic.
Part of the select group of people.
Yeah.
You only get one for coming on the show.
Yeah.
So
you're part of an elite alumni. So
we'll wait till the end of the show and then they can give us their
you can determine how elite it is,
At the end of the show, they'll let us know how it went. Where we rank. So
Definitely not going to lie. When I'm actually going up to my cousin's wedding this weekend in Virginia, so being able to say I got the coolest thing happened this week was getting a podcast free mic. Definitely a nice little fun time to share with family.
Well, the other part that we do for our new guests on the show is for our listeners out there who might not be familiar with you. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you do for your organization, and how you ended up with us here today. And we'll start with Mr. Justin McCloskey.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So as mentioned, my name is Justin McCloskey. I am a Senior Corporate Advancement Officer with Trident United Way. And today, specifically, very excited to be here being the relationship manager between Berkeley Electric Cooperative and Trident United Way. I've been with TUW, as we call it for short, for a little over 2 years now, and absolutely love getting to bring together different corporate partners with Trident United Way to help serve our neighbors here in the Tri-County.
And Mr. Hampton, sir, if you would be so kind.
Please call me DJ. It's such a pleasure to be here. And as we all know, Berkeley Electric Co-op does so many incredible things in the community for so many groups. I've been in the role for a couple years as president and CEO, and I'm really blessed to work with and for the community to figure out how we uplift hardworking families wherever they are, whether it's at an employer or it's in public, just figuring out how we can make those linkages happen. And we're just honored to have you all as such great partners.
Already going to go off script. Since we're talking about Trident United Way and helping the local community, are you guys local? I mean, are you grow up around in the area?
Yeah, so moved down here a few years ago specifically for this job. My family and I had identified the Charleston metro area, the Tri-County, as an area we wanted to move to and retire. We had a couple young girls, a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old now. And we just wanted a place we could lay some deep roots. And after having moved for work for multiple times, it was time to do this. And so when this opportunity popped up, it was just too good to pass up. I've spent about 21 years with the United Way network in one shape or form or another.
Great.
And it's really just such a dream to be in such a community that cares so much about neighbors and each other.
Yeah.
Not from Ohio, are you?
No.
Everybody who moves to the area seems to be from Ohio.
No. Originally a couple hours north of Syracuse, New York, on the Canadian border of New York State. So about 8 hours north of the city.
Oh, yeah. Way up there.
Yeah.
Justin, are you from the area?
I unfortunately cannot say I'm a local, but on the plus, I can also say I'm not from Ohio. So I figure it balanced out a little bit. Actually am from a small town in Virginia called Leesburg. It's about an hour west of DC, and moved down here to take a job with MUSC, doing marketing for them at the time, and really enjoyed getting involved with MUSC. Found myself wanting to stay a little bit more involved in the community around here, and that's what had led me to United Way, going from the marketing sphere to the corporate advancement sphere, and getting a little bit more directly to bring organizations and businesses into service across our community. And United Way has been, has certainly exceeded my expectations for our role in the community, how we bring folks together, and my own love for it. I was really excited to step into this role, get to own it a little bit more, and be a little bit more client-facing. But I found myself working a little bit harder than I expected to because it's so exciting getting to
Yeah.
care for the community, getting to meet such incredible partners like y'all. Do this with my CEO during my workday is not the worst thing in the world. So I really, really enjoyed getting to, get and step into meeting some incredible partners and do some awesome things like getting free mugs. So
Nice.
thanks.
Yeah.
Well, like we said, we've invited you guys here today to talk about the good work that Trident United Way is and has been doing in the community. And you guys have both alluded to it a little bit, but let's dive a little bit more into the mission. And DJ, for those who may not be familiar with the agency, what is Trident United Way?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking a chance to share a little bit. United Ways in general came out of the community chest movement, which in the late 1800s was the first nonprofit groups in the community to kind of say, how do we combine resources and do more as a community and stretch those dollars? And that first started in Denver in the late 1800s, and it spread. And we were founded here 80 years ago as our own separate 501c3 as the community and war chest. If you ever play Monopoly, the little cards that say community chest?
Yes, actually.
That's actually United Way. And then we were founded here to help support war bonds at the time. And then after that, it was to help the veterans returning back and their families adapt to civilian life.
Okay.
And since then, we've been adapting. Every 15, 20 years, we step back and we say, what are the biggest needs of the community today?
Sure.
And then Trident United Way meets it. The one through line, though, has always been hardworking families.
Yeah.
How do we look to where there's households with children in them, and then how do we make sure that they have everything they need when it comes to education, income, health, and those key building blocks that help people thrive long term? We know by doing that, you end up with a thriving community, and you have people who care about each other, and it's just such a great place to be right now.
Sure. Well, DJ, a couple more questions for you. Something I've always wondered, what does the Trident and Trident United Way refer to in the name?
Yeah, so in 1970s, when there was 3 different community chests in the area, they merged, and it became Trident, the 3, kind of an illusion of 3 rivers, the 3 counties.
Yeah.
And so as part of that, it became Trident United Way around 1970 when those groups consolidated.
Yeah. Well, how are you guys different from other organizations in the community doing, similar good work?
Yeah, the other through line through all that is that we have been a key enabler of the nonprofit community. So from the 50s on, we were the main fundraiser for most nonprofits in town. So whether you were MUSC or you were a nonprofit focused in Moncks Corner, we were raising money for all the nonprofits, and then those funds would be split. And in the 80s, we realized we needed more resources for need, and so we helped those groups set up their own fundraising departments. But the one thing that we kept doing was to invest grants in those nonprofit partners.
Yeah.
And so for the last 50 years, we've been really doing what had traditionally been called an allocations process. And now we call changemaker grants. They're targeted grants at needs of the community that meet unmet need and nonprofits apply. And there's not a lot of strings attached, but it does enable them to do a lot more of the work. And we've been particularly focused on gaps for hardworking families. So think folks who are employed and those who don't qualify for services because they make way more than the federal poverty line, but they don't make enough to make ends meet. And for a family of 4, you're talking high $80,000. If you've got a child in child care, you've got to make that's before student loans. That doesn't include a car payment. And it's unfortunate that the costs here since the mid-2000s have essentially doubled. And so that's what we're laser focused on today. And that's a little bit of what differentiates us from most nonprofits. None of them are our competitors. We're all together on this. And we're always looking for how we partner, collaborate, not duplicate services, but add a lot of value so that more people get served.
Well, and referring people to the right place.
Yes.
If you're someone living in chronic stress, the last thing you need to do is figure out how to solve this niche need that you have. And, it's so great with Trident United Way's 211, okay, if you need help with this, here's who you talk to. And, it seems like it would definitely lower the learning curve for a lot of folks.
It does. And we believe not only is the phone option, 211 to text or to phone, a great option to get that, but we keep a database of all the nonprofit services in town. So when a family calls, they're not having to call 25 different nonprofits to say, do I qualify or not? We have that database.
Yeah.
And so we connect them directly to human beings who could help them. We also have physical locations. We have one right down the street here in Moncks Corner. We have another one in Dorchester. And we're adding 2 new facilities in the next 12 months, one in North Charleston and one downtown.
Terrific.
Just because we know the needs have been going up so immensely. And combining that digital option, virtual option that you get on 211 with a phone or a smartphone or a landline, with in-person facilities where we bring a dozen or so nonprofits to one spot really does help people navigate that, because that can be an incredibly stressful, scary thing. I mean, no one teaches you how to navigate a system, but then you have to miss a lot of shifts of work to figure it out on your own. It just makes this a lot easier for families.
Well, and it's so great that you can still just pick up the phone and get information, because access to the internet, or the ability to operate a device that accesses the internet, is not something that not everybody has, particularly if they're living in a chronically stressful setup.
It does, and it also allows you to do it at your convenience. I mean, you could be on a lunch break, or you could be driving to pick your kids up from school, and you can make that quick phone call and get your assistance and the help, and then we'd schedule and connect them directly with the groups that they need.
Terrific.
And it makes a lot of sense, you know, speaking about all of the ways that y'all help partner with the community, that, you know, it's a partnership that we've invested in with y'all as well. Because, I mean, a lot of things that you talk about that you're doing, we try to replicate, I guess, on a small scale here, you know, a little bit more specifically focused to us. But we maintain a list of assistance agencies for when members call in, we're able to redirect them to areas that need help. And we are so embedded in our communities. We try to do our best to reach out to our communities and have touch points in each one of our areas, because each one of the areas is completely different. I mean, you know, we serve a pretty wide area, you know, from McClellanville up to Pineville to the Sea Islands, Monk's Corner, Goose Creek, and each one of those areas has its own unique needs. And so having those touch points and having the ability to refer people to the correct organizations, time saver in a lot of cases, life saver, just sanity saver in a lot of cases too, because like you said, it's a very stressful situation when we all know when it comes to money and it comes to running a household and just your daily life. I mean, the added stress of trying to figure out, you know, am I going to pay my medical bill this month, or am I going to pay my car payment? And like you said, it doesn't take much these days. I mean, one bad paycheck, one bad little incident at the house that you weren't expecting, car accident, any of those things can put you behind, you know, honest, hardworking people. Drop of a hat.
Prices increasing for everything. We were talking to a colleague yesterday, and his homeowner's insurance went up. He's certainly fortunate to be able to own his own home, but he was scrambling to try to figure out a different provider because it just became cost prohibitive, his current provider. So, you know, unexpected things hit us left and right.
It does. And when we look at our two resource connection centers, one right here in Monk's Corner, the other in Somerville and Dorchester County, what we saw last year is 6,500 families came into those two facilities. 3,000 of them hadn't been to a crisis facility or a referral center before. Those are people who, to your point, had one thing in common. Many of them had either had a child in the household, which meant costs went up so much faster. And while we've been blessed in the last 10 years to be in a place where wages have gone up, costs once you add a child in can go up so much faster. And so we're seeing a lot of families. If you look at our resource connection centers, statistically are likely to be a mom with a child in the home, and you know, a huge percentage are working hard every day, and so it's one of the reasons that we believe so hard in this work, and we've really spent a lot of time trying to define that and get the public to understand that these are our colleagues, they're our neighbors. It's you know, almost 40% of the population in the Tri-County, and doing all the right things, just can't get ahead.
Well, we just wrapped up the school year, and I know my son, he finished the 4th grade, but he missed 9.5 days of school from illness. And I am so fortunate to work at Berkeley Electric, and we have sick leave that we can take, and an understanding supervisor, but not every family has that. And that's another curveball that can, if you're an hourly employee and you don't have sick time, you're losing those wages staying home with your sick child. It may not be you sick, but you certainly have to provide care for your child. You can't send a sick kid to daycare or to school, and then you might get sick from taking care of them. So you might miss a couple of weeks before you know it. So. And
what we call these families Alice families. And I'll ask Justin, I think I've been talking way too much so far, but I'll ask Justin to jump in and help with that. But that we see that, and the average Alice family is less than $500 in savings. And so to your point, Micah, you might be able to weather one unexpected cost. You know, your car breaks down, child needs an unexpected medical cost, something. It's that second one that can be a knockout blow. And on a long enough timeline, It might be 500 on one family. It might be 1,500 on another. It just means it buys more time, but it doesn't change the underlying thing that you were mentioning, is that it can be really challenging. Lose a shift, lose some work, and you could be right in that position. And so, Justin, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about Alice?
Yeah, who is Alice?
Yeah, excuse me. Alice is an acronym that I am really appreciative, an acronym and a framework I'm really appreciative of us being able to help share with the community, because I think it gives a term to something a lot of us know exists. And as we talk about hardworking families, these are hardworking families that are struggling to make ends meet, right? Like you talk about, if your kid is sick, facing 9.5 days is a lot as an adult to try to take off work for and try to make ends meet, and it's a tough balance. And so ALICE is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And ALICE represents those in our community who are living above the federal poverty line, yet still not earning enough to cover the cost of basic necessities. So talk about how many people is this in our community? It's a ton. We're talking 97,000, or of the 97,000 total households in Berkeley County, about 40% of them are either at that ALICE level or beneath that in a portion of poverty. And so we look at the ALICE threshold, which is folks who are representing the ALICE community and also living below the poverty line, to look at how financially stable are families in our community. And as we talk about, like 40% of Berkeley County, that's a significant portion of our community, right? And we're talking about hardworking families that are having a hard time making their ends meet. This isn't just folks who are in the worst situations. This is a lot of us across our community that's unfortunately we are having a hard time being able to get the resources necessary. And there is, to DJ's point, you made a really good point talking about it's hard to leverage all the right tools in the system. But from my own experience and just like living life, it's not just the system, like it's just navigating life that we're trying to talk about. How do we make sure folks, ALICE, all of us in our community have what we need to be able to make ends meet and be able to live in our communities?
Yeah. And what is the salary, the income threshold for ALICE?
Absolutely. So we understand there's a lot of factors that obviously determine the stability of a household. Particularly, the biggest one, DJ mentioned, having kids is huge. Having kids is probably the amount of folks in your household is the biggest factor that's going to influence that. We find for a single adult household in the Tri-County area of Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties, it requires about an annual income as of, this is 2023 data that we most recently got and have organized, takes about $41,136 on a salary and about $20.57 on an hourly wage. But if you're looking at a family of four, say you got one infant and one preschooler, you're looking at an annual salary of $89,000, roughly about $90,000, and an hourly wage of $44.95. Those are like pretty massive numbers.
Those are big numbers.
That you're talking about, I mean, to be able to not make ends meet. We're not talking being able to save significant money on that salary. We're not talking car payments. A lot of factors go into the different elements of what it takes to cover ALICE cost of living. And that's just the bare basics. We're not talking about birthday parties for your kids, buying Christmas gifts, some of these things that oftentimes when you get to a bit of a comfortable phase of life, think of them as essential. This is the barest of bones. We're talking about what it costs to make a stable, a barely stable life here in the Tri-County. So excellent question what that looks like, because it's significant.
And how does the ALICE levels compare to the federal poverty line? You know, we talk a lot about that. How much of a gap is that?
So the federal poverty line was set up in the 50s, and if you ask anyone in government how it's determined, there's no index. It was just a number that was plucked out of air and has been adjusted by Congress over time. But what's interesting about federal poverty line is it's the same here as it would be in New York City or South Dakota.
Yeah.
It's the same number. And when we look at a family of four, the federal poverty line is set around $36,000, give or take.
Oh, my gosh.
So if it costs roughly $89,000 to live here.
It's almost three times.
Almost three times. And what we've seen is all of the nonprofit services and many of the for-profit services that can lift up families were designed around a small multiple of the federal poverty line. And most of them tap out around $50,000. And so the data we're trying to share is this idea of financial struggle is bigger than just this traditional idea of federal poverty line.
Right.
Yes, 30 years ago, you could live in the Tri-County on the federal poverty line. Those days have been long gone. And so how do we let everyone know about this so that we can work with employers, churches, and other groups that care, and other nonprofits to really say, how do we address this as a whole community? Because if we don't figure this out, we're not going to have a Charleston, a Berkeley County, and a Dorchester County that is going to look like it does today. It's going to look vastly different.
And on that point about like what does that gap between the two groups look like? It's significantly wider. The last 10 years, further back you go, the closer it was. And I think that's why a lot of people have the framework they do of thinking folks who are struggling are folks who are not. Like, it couldn't be hardworking folks who are struggling. They are stable because they're working. It's incredible to see that gap broaden of now on nearly 3 times salary, because that didn't used to be the case. But as just cost of living has significantly got expensive, it really is amazing to see how much wider that gap between the poverty line and the ALICE threshold has really, really adjusted.
Yeah, we're also seeing it in senior populations. It's the second fastest growing. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Some areas of the Tri-County, it's the fastest growing. Others, it's the second fastest. But if you're on fixed income, you worked your whole life, you've saved, you're now retired.
You can't go get a job when you're 85.
You can't. What are you going to do? You can't increase your household income.
Yeah.
All you could do is decrease your household costs. So then you're making tough decisions, whether you're 35 with 2 kids or you're an 80-year-old. Making the same tough decisions. Do I buy food? Do I buy medicine? Do I put gas in my tank? Do I pay my light bill? Do I pay my rent or my mortgage?
Yeah.
That's the type of decisions that we're trying to help families navigate, whether you're an 85-year-old or you are a mom or a dad.
And I think a lot of things, expectations, we've talked about how, things have evolved over time. And I think one of the things that also needs to evolve too is the expectation of when it's okay to ask for help. I think there's a big stigma probably that's still associated with reaching out to an aid agency, because we've always been taught, work hard.
That's for those people, not
right?
me.
Yeah, it's for everybody else. It's not for me. And then suddenly you find yourself in that situation, and then A, you don't know where to start, and B, you've got that sort of stigmata against actually asking for help. And as we're talking, things have changed greatly since, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's probably more of a norm to find yourself on that edge of paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. So I think the expectations also need to change as well for folks to be able to understand that it's okay to ask for help, and that's why these agencies exist. They're here, they're willing, and it's not, a failure on your part to be able to ask for help. I think that's one of the things that we need to communicate to folks.
I completely agree. To me, calling 211 or going to a resource connection is the same as Googling how do you help fix a screen door on your patio. Yeah. To me, it's a knowledge you don't have that you're looking to get. The other thing I'm really encouraged by is I see a lot of groups, Berkeley Electric Co-op's a great example, we're saying, how do we support folks? I mean, the fact that they could call you, just like they could call 211 and ask how to navigate the nonprofit, and they could say, how do I lower my household costs so I can afford this? I mean, you can help them with the water heaters. You can help them with an energy audit. Like, there are things that we refer people to every day that you are doing that makes a measurable difference. Because if you're within $100 of a balanced budget, you may not be able to find it, but by lowering your costs, you can get there. And so I've just got to say, it's the for-profits, it's nonprofits, it's groups like Berkeley Electric Co-op who are coming together and say, how do we address this systemically?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then, we talk about, everyday things that happen that are unexpected. Then we have things like COVID-19 that come along that, put everybody up against the wall. And, we did our best during the COVID times, to try to help out and find new partnerships to help our members. One of the things that we did was team up with Home Telecom to support a utility assistance fund that was earmarked for families with children and teachers in need. And our most recent contribution is to try to United Way's Barriers to Employment Fund. So what is the Barriers to Employment Fund, and how has our contribution sort of helped those impacted families?
Well, I got to say, that has made a dramatic difference. 3 years ago, we had a community volunteer who kind of said, hey, if I was going to go and say, what's the biggest challenge facing a family from having a stable long-term job, what would it be? And we went back, we looked at the data, and we said, well, here's a gap. If you get a new job today, but you don't have a lot of savings, you can't afford those things that enable you to go to your job. So let's say you're a construction worker. Well, you're going to have steel-toed boots. Who has an extra $350 laying around to afford the steel-toed boots? Or you get a job that might be a county away because that's where you can afford rent. but you've got to get there, but you might have a flat tire. You may not have the $75 to go to Gerald's and get your new tire.
Yeah.
Or you may need a cell phone so that you could communicate with your boss and find out what shifts you're supposed to work. Or maybe it's a month of childcare as a mom because you don't have the money to pay for childcare, but no one's going to watch your child without that front piece.
Right.
And so this fund was started really just to try to address that, and it was incredibly successful. Last year, we're so honored that Berkeley Electric Co-op said, you know what, we'll contribute to this for 3 years, and we'll figure out how we do this. And last year, the Barriers to Employment Fund was able to help 80 households, 88 actually, individuals get to work. And what we surveyed them later, and 100% were still employed, and 10% had gone on to a higher paying job. And when we look at this year, so far, the fund since January has supported right now just around about 40 households. And those households are now, again, same thing. We haven't surveyed them to find out employment still. We'll get that after the time. But the fact they're able to do this, and we're talking little things like work attire, so scrubs or a helmet, tech and phone equipment, insurance for a car, a tire, and in some cases that childcare. It becomes huge. And then what I'm also excited to see is the number of individuals also leveraging it for GED support.
Wow.
There's a few jobs that require you to have a diploma or a GED, and the person gets the job, but they still got to pass the GED.
Yeah.
So some of those funds have actually been used to help people prep and take the fees associated with a GED course. And so it's been an incredible investment, and I just got to say thank you to y'all for that.
Yeah, it feels so good to know that, these are over 100 families that we've potentially changed the trajectory for them and their children and the community. So we're proud to be part of that. But Justin, we have just a few minutes left. Time flies when you're having fun.
Got that right.
There's so much need in the Tri-County, but there's also so many people who are so fortunate looking to give back. What are some ways that a listener could engage and share their time, talent, or treasures?
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, there is a lot of ways to get involved across the community, and our resource connection centers are obviously a great way for folks to get support. But similarly, we have a lot of other partners that are also avenues to provide a significant amount of opportunities to get involved with. Easiest way to find a lot of opportunities is online. We have a volunteer portal folks can go to that gives a range of different upcoming opportunities. So go to that, bookmark that first of all. But right now we actually have a school supplies drive going on through the end of July that we are collecting school supplies for, whether that be books or pencils or materials to help support teachers across the community. That's going on right now through July 30th. And then coming up on August 9th, we're going to be hosting a packing day on that. And so we'll need volunteers to help pack that as well. And then we have our landmark. It's a little bit of a ways away, but we've got our landmark volunteer day of the year coming up in November 19th to 21st, the Days of Caring. We try to bring together a bunch of different organizations to provide opportunities for folks to volunteer wherever their heart might lie. And last year, DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had about 2,000 volunteers and over 200 organizational partners. Berkeley Electric being a fantastic one, bringing out some volunteers last year as well. So plenty of ways to get connected. Feel free to check us out online. But that school supplies drive right now is a great one to be a part of.
Okay, awesome. And if you're a golf fan, is there an opportunity to get involved and engage with Trident United Way?
Well, how about that? You really teed that up pretty well, if you will. So we actually have our tee off for lasting change coming up on Thursday, August 21st at 3 p.m. This is going to be the first of its type annual fundraiser that we'll be hosting. And you mentioned if you're a golf fan, it's good to go to. I am not a golf fan, but I will be there because that's the nice thing about Topgolf is you don't have to be the most incredible golfer in the world to have a good time.
Topgolf, I can do that.
Yeah.
There you go, exactly. So we're really looking forward to bringing together different organizations across our community for a friendly fundraiser, helping to support lasting change in the community, similarly to how y'all are doing. You want to talk about creating lasting change? The Barriers to Employment Fund is a great way to do it. A lot of our different resources for the community really seek to create that change. Is an excellent way to do it. Have a good time. You can sign up for a table of 6. Or individual tickets are available for about $100 a person. We'd love to see y'all there for sure. And if anybody's listening, would love to join us. You can sign up for that online as well.
I was afraid you were going to make me break out my golf clubs. Well, first I'd have to find them first. I stopped playing golf about 23 years ago when my daughter was born. So, but you mentioned several times the website. What is the website for folks to go and sign up?
So our website is tuw.org, and links for volunteering and the Topgolf fundraiser Tee Off for Lasting Change will be both available from our homepage. And then if you wanted to check us out on socials, our Instagram handle is at Trident United Way. I believe that's all one word. And you can also check us out on LinkedIn at, I believe, that same handle.
Well, folks, that has been a very informative and quick 30 minutes. We want to thank the folks from Trident United Way for being here today, and thank everybody for tuning in to Power Talk. This is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative, and you can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio, and get a behind-the-scenes look on Berkeley Electric's YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Power Talk, signing off.